Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1199B, and today's date is February 8th, 2017, and the title of the episode is, As We Approach the Economic Crisis, the Government Will Start to Break Down. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with Cliff High. It is on the YouTube channel. All you have to do is type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you to the YouTube channel, and you can play the video there. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over the right-hand side. You'll be able to play the video right on the site. Or you can go to NewsSentinel.com. Same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll be able to play the video there. This interview with Cliff High is a must-listen to. He lays out the economic crisis and how long it's going to last. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, Trump and his administration, they were out in front of the three judges, and they were trying to get the temporary travel ban reinstated. And Trump went on to TV to state that the president has the right under United States Code 2011 edition, Title 8, Aliens and Nationality. This is from Chapter 12, Subchapter 2, and from Section 1182. And he read this where it says, whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interest of the United States, he may by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. And it goes on and on and on. But what he's saying is that the president has the right to do this. And he didn't pass this law. This law was already there for something like 60-something years, maybe even longer than that. And we can see that he is out there saying to the federal system, the judges, that he does have the right to do this. And of course, everyone is out there saying that, if you don't let the immigrants in or the refugees in, you're racist. Well, immigrant and refugees, they're not a race. So you can't be racist for not letting them in. And a Swedish cop, well, he posted an epic Facebook rant on immigrant crime. He wanted to tell everyone what the truth really was. Now, again, I understand people are looking for a better life. They're leaving their war-torn countries and they're coming here to the United States, or the United States is bringing them over, because that was originally what was happening. And we know that it was planned out in Turkey, where Turkey just released all these individuals to travel throughout Europe. This was their instructions. And we have to remember the source of all this is coming from the United States government central bankers, the neocons, the elite, that have created these situations. But a Swedish police officer, well, he offered a little bit more truth than what people are used to, that people don't want to hear. And he said that between Monday and Friday of this week, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, rape assault, extortion, blackmail, assault, violence against police, threats to police, drug crime, etc. Well, they were done by many of the immigrants and refugees. Suspected perpetrators: Ali Muhammad, Muhammad, and he went on and on and on. And he was out there saying that this is a major problem. The countries where all these individuals were coming from are Iraq, Turkey, Syria, Afghanistan, Somalia, Syria. And he says that half of the suspects, we can't be sure because they don't have any valid papers, which in itself usually means that they're lying about their nationality and their identity. And he's saying that he's been a police officer for 47 years in Sweden, Peter Springer, and he's saying he couldn't take it anymore. People need to know what is really happening. They need to know the truth, that this is a major problem. And those individuals that have no papers, well, how did they get in? Again, this is a problem. because we need some type of vetting system. I mean, think about your own house. Does everyone leave their doors open and let everyone in? Or do you vet them? They knock on your door, you open it, you say, hey, who are you? What are you doing? Why do you want to come in? Do I know you? You do this. And this is not being racist. This is vetting. This is making sure that this person is okay to come in. Same thing with this country. Yes, do we want people coming into this country? Of course we do. We just want to make sure that they're not rapists. They're not part of a drug cartel. They're not terrorists. I mean, this seems very reasonable. Germany, they are looking to fingerprint all refugees to combat benefit fraud, because right now they're having a lot of problems because these individuals are cheating the system. They're using identities that really aren't theirs. They don't have the valid paperwork. And to stop handing out duplicate benefits to all of these refugees, they would like to fingerprint the individuals to make sure that, oh, you already received your benefit, you're not getting more. And this is what they're trying to implement in Germany right now. Now, we know that there's been a problem in the South China Sea, where the United States is saying that we have the right of navigation. Of course, the United States have never ratified or signed the rights of navigation, but we can see the U.S. has been pushing the agenda to provoke China in this region, in the South China Sea, because what they've been trying to do is encircle China and then provoke them for war. And China's foreign minister, Wang Yi, said the United States needs to brush up on its history about the South China Sea. U.S. needs to remember World War II and remember the agreements and what happened. Because what they're saying is that the United States made an agreement after World War II. And we can see that Rex Tillerson, he said that China should not be allowed to access the islands it has built there. The White House has also vowed to defend international territories in the strategic waterway. Mattis has backed off a little bit, saying maybe we need a political solution. And China is saying, listen, this is what happened during this period. Here's the documentation. 1943 was the Cairo Declaration, and 1945 was the Potsdam Declaration, which clearly state that Japan had to return to China all Chinese territories taken by Japan. This includes the Nansha, which is the Spratly Islands, to China. In 1946, the Chinese government, with the help of the United States, openly and in accordance with the law, took back these areas occupied by Japan. And they resumed exercising sovereignty over this area. Now, the U.S. actually helped China and gave this area back to them. The United States knows this. But the neocons, the elite, they don't care. They just want you to see that China is taking over this entire area. And what they're saying is those countries that are surrounding this area, they were pushed into creating a problem. And we see Duterte in the Philippines said, you know something, let me talk to China about this. And China said, yes, you can sell your ships in here, you can fish in this area, no problem. They're saying if other countries would come to us, we can work this out diplomatically. Instead, the United States is getting involved, blocking these countries from dealing with us. And if we look at the documentation and what the U.S. actually did, well, China is in the right within this area. The U.S., with the elite, the neocons, they're trying to provoke a war. Now, we know Trump campaigned on calming the situation down with Russia, and we know that he had a conversation with Putin, and he would like to ease sanctions with Russia. And we can see that Trump is really not part of the Republican Party. I know a lot of people think like, oh, he's Republican, they're working together, but we can see from this example that they are not. And we know that there are individuals in the Republican Party where they are warmongers. They want war. And we can see right now that there are U.S. senators, Republican senators, who are out there, and they're creating this bill which will veto and block Trump from lifting sanctions on Russia. So there are 6 senators right now, and it is growing. Of course, Lindsey Graham, Ben Cardin, Mark Rubio, of course, John McCain, Claire McCaskill, Sherrod Brown. They're creating this bill, which is the Russia Review Act. And like I said in the past, the titles never reflect what the bill is really actually like. Usually it's the opposite. So this really should be Block Trump from Easing Sanctions on Russia Act. That's what it really should be called. And we see that Russia understands that there are forces within the government and those who are not elected that they're trying to push war. They want war. Does it mean it's going to happen? No. But they're going to continually try to push it until they maybe get it. And Putin understands this. He is mobilizing right now his S-400 missile systems near Moscow. Now, we know about a month ago he had like a snap drill in this area. He moved missiles into the area because they're very nervous about what is happening in the region. And we see at this point that he put all the missiles into place and had a surprise exercise to see how the forces react when there is an attack in this area. And we understand that if these neocons, the elite, the central bank get their way, they would start war with Russia. Now, Trump, he is set to approve weapon sales to Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. And we can see that he's actually pushing and selling weapons to these countries. And we need to understand exactly what his motives are, because right now they're very unclear, because we can see that Trump is calling out Iran, saying that, they're going to attack at any minute. They're a threat. And, of course, Russia's sitting out there saying, well, no, Iran is not supporting terrorists. They don't support the Islamic State. They don't support al-Nusra. They don't support al-Qaeda. They don't support al-Sham. China is saying the same exact thing. But we can see that every time Iran does something, the neocons are out there, the elite are out there saying that Iran is getting ready to attack. And we need to understand something about Iran. They have been under sanctions for a very long time because there was regime change going back during the Carter period, where Iran decided they didn't want a puppet government anymore and they wanted to take back their country. The United States pushed the P5+1 deal on Iran with the promise that all that money that is being held because of sanctions, that will be returned and you would have to use the dollar to sell your oil. And the other agenda was to make sure that Iran didn't develop nuclear weapons. Now, we know that Iran said, okay, we're not going to use the dollar to sell our oil, we're going to use the euro. And now recently they said they're going to be dumping the dollar. Because you have to remember, their plan was to go into all the Middle Eastern countries, go into Syria. The last one was Iran. If Iran was a nuclear weaponized state, this would be a problem. This is why they pushed so hard for the P5+1 deal, to make sure and have them inspected that they would never create a nuclear weapon. And when they say that Russia and Iran, they want war, we really need to look at what is happening. Now, all around Russia, there are U.S. and NATO bases all around Russia, surrounding them. And around Iran, there are bases in Turkey, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Afghanistan, completely surround Iran. Now, they haven't been moving their countries closer to the bases. The bases have been moving closer to them. And we see that NATO, well, they have expanded throughout Eastern Europe, and they've gotten closer to Russia. And they're trying to convince you that Iran and Russia, they're preparing for war. Well, actually, it's really the opposite. We see the Libyan authorities, well, they oppose the EU migrant plans. And what they're saying is that Italy, they wanted Libya to stop the migration flows towards Italy. And the authorities in Libya said, well, wait a minute. We're not going to agree with this because the European Union, the U.S., the coalition forces, they're responsible for the illegal immigrant problem. They're the ones who are creating this and creating the problem. And this is exactly right. If we removed ourselves from the Middle East and let these countries return back to a non-warring period, people would return back to their homes. There wouldn't be refugees. There wouldn't be any of these problems. But you have to remember the central bankers, they needed to capture all these countries, have regime change, continually keep the war going. And when I say keep the war going, it's the people in the country who don't want the puppet government in their country. They're trying to get rid of them. That's what the war is all about. And then we have the other war where the U.S. is trying to get more and more of these countries going in and trying to have regime change. And during all of this, they've created disastrous areas within the Middle East where people can't live, they can't eat, they cannot function, and they have to leave. Because what else do you do? They pack up a suitcase, they throw it over their shoulder, and they just leave their country. And again, it is the United States government, the central bankers, the EU, that are causing all of the problems. Jordan right now is saying that they're not going to let Syria be invited to the Arab Summit. Russia was trying to push for this. They were blocked since 2011 when all of this started, where the uprising, the grassroots uprising in Syria started, which we know is completely fake, phony, and false, but they're still not letting them in. We see that Assad is saying that Russian companies, they'll be working in the oil gas production in Syria. China didn't ask, Russia did. They're letting them in, and we can see that the central bankers, well, they're very upset about this because they wanted the oil, they wanted the pipelines, they wanted to get into Iran, and that's not happening right now. We see that Russia is very upset with the OPCW, the chemical weapons probe in Syria, because when they looked at the documentation and they looked at what the OPCW fact-finding mission was all about, well, what they did was they didn't go into the country hands-on. They called people and spoke to them remotely. And they talked about what happened in the country. That was their fact-finding mission. And Russia is saying, this is no way to have an investigation. And we also see that the corporate media, the elite, the central bankers are out there still pushing the same message. We mentioned this yesterday about these 13,000 people over the course of 5 years that were secretly hung for crimes. And Assad was responsible for this. And they have these satellite images, which are a little blurred. They have Photoshop lines pointing to little dots. Now, every time you see this, you know it's completely fake, because satellite imagery, they can zoom right in color, in 3D, and show you everything. They can read a license plate. So when they zoom out and they show you these blurry satellite images, going back to Ukraine, they were showing us black and white, completely blurry. That's how you know it's completely fake, phony, and false. These are images from the 80s. The black and white ones are from the 70s. And you know that they're trying to hide something when they do this. Now, Damascus has slammed the inaccurate and politically motivated Amnesty International report claiming that the Syrian military police, were hanging these 13,000 people over the 5 years. The Syrian Justice Ministry, in a statement published on Tuesday, rejected the account of mass hangings in the prison near Damascus between 2011 and 2015 as bogus and false, saying such claims are meant to ruin the government's reputation in the international community. The statement further emphasized that based on Syrian law, death sentences are handed only after judicial trials run through several degrees of litigation. And with this article, what they're saying is that, oh, they just went ahead and hung all these people. And again, where are they getting their proof? Where are they getting the information? Well, again, they're just talking to individuals. They have no real proof. And we have to remember, on the outskirts of Damascus, we had the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and there were already mass graves that were discovered. And we can see right now that the corporate media, the elite, the neocons, they're out there doing the same thing they've always done. They're creating propaganda because they're about to be found out about what was really happening in Syria. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about what is happening now in the United States. We're seeing the government, well, they're fighting with each other. Now, during a period of when the nation is going through stress, when we're headed into this economic crisis and things start to rapidly fall apart, governments, well, they start to break down. Rule of law is thrown out the window, and we've been seeing this when Obama was president. We're starting to see that the elite, the neocons, well, they're still pushing their agenda. And when things start to fall apart, when the economy starts to fall apart, many of these individuals in government, they're going to run for the hills because they weren't helping you in the first place. They weren't helping the people in the first place. When there's a crisis, they're not going to help at that point in time. And what's going to happen is governments, they will break down. And what needs to be done is that the governments will need to be completely cleaned out. We cannot have career politicians. We cannot have these same individuals in government. We need to restart the government just like we're going to restart the economy, like we're going to get rid of the private Western Central Bank. So as we move throughout this economic crisis, we're going to see the government break down. We're going to see increased fighting within the government. And the entire thing is going to be chaos. And we can see right now that, according to many individuals, we are heading to that point in time, and it is getting closer and closer. And this is why everyone needs to be prepared. You need to be ready for what is coming. Don't put it off. Make sure that you have what you need. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.